So thank you to everybody for coming. And it is an honor for us to introduce Erick Oosthuizen from Labornet. So Erick, welcome. And firstly, welcome to the store and welcome to the show. So before we start, could you tell us a little bit about Erick Oosthuizen?
Yeah, thank you so much, Lester. Good morning, everybody. So my name is Erick Oosthuizen, as Lester said now. I work for a company called Labornet. Labornet is a outsourced compliance business in South Africa. We assist small and medium businesses in South Africa with their labor legislation compliance. And that includes a lot of various different products that we offer, from health and safety to payroll to literally labor legislation, triple BE, transformation, employment equity, just to name a few of our products that we offer, our payroll, our one payroll products. We have our own platform that we work from, that we provide our clients to. So yeah, I've been with Labournet 5 years now. I'm currently a team leader. Yeah, so I've got a region that I oversee with a client base, and we consult our clients. We interface with our clients on daily. Labournet provides services in the labor legislation department. We conduct disciplinary hearings, the chairing of it, assisting with poor work performance processes, assistance at the CCMA. So we obviously represent our clients at the CCMA with disputes that is brought up at the CCMA. And we all know that could be sometimes quite costly, employees running to the CCMA. Everybody in South Africa knows that the Labour Relations Act and the Employment, or the Basic Conditions of Employment Act and the Employment Equity Act for that matter, provides a lot of protection to employees in South Africa. Small, medium business owners, you guys want to run a business. You don't really want to look at labor legislation because it gets quite technical. And that's what Labornet offers. We offer this one-stop shop product solution to our clients. A client phone me, tell me this is an employee that transgressed on this. What is the process for it? Employee took me to the CCMA. I failed to pay out their annual leave at the end of their termination when they were terminated. What is happening at the CCMA? How do I go and sit and defend this very technical matter at the CCMA? It's not just the CCMA, it's all the tribunals, the bargaining councils, even up to the labor court. We've got our sister company, Snyman Attorneys, who obviously is then allowed to go and assist our clients if a matter escalates so far to the labor court, labor appeal court for that.
Yeah. Fantastic. Now, human resources are one of the things that are often overlooked by smaller and medium-sized businesses. At what point do you feel their business should start implementing some of these HR processes?
Lester, as soon as possible. I work specifically in the labor law product. Clients sign up with Labornet, and I get there. My first point of attack, or a consultant's point of attack with a client, is to do a labor audit. Okay, and the labor audit goes from start to finish. We investigate in terms of the employment relationship. What is non-compliant in your business? Now that means we check, is there contracts of employment? Is the employees not working more than 45 hours in any given week? If they do, is there a clause in the contract for that? Are they receiving overtime? We make sure, are you compliant with pay as you earn for tax, for SARS reason? Second of all, UIF. I've seen it before. Employers run a very successful business, small, medium business, but they have never deducted UIF or contributed to the fund for UIF. An employee goes on maternity leave, they go to the labor department, they try to claim maternity leave. Oh, there was never UIF deducted for this person. So we look at the working hours, entitlements in terms of leave, notice period of termination, and then we provide you feedback and say, look, this is what we have to tackle first in terms of getting you compliant. And we put Labornet's stamp of approval on that. If there's anything shortcoming, we will tell you about it and we will advise you how to get that correct. We assist with drafting contracts of employment, indefinite period or permanent contracts, fixed term contracts. We assist with independent contracts as well, but independent contractors aren't really seen as employees in South Africa. So to answer your question, Lester, as soon as possible, employers need to look at what the basic conditions of employment and the Labour Relations Act says on the employment relationship. How do we establish the employment relationship? And then from there on, are we compliant with minimum wage, minimum leave entitlement, working hours? There's various topics. I could go on for hours on. So yeah.
One of the swear words you used there was audit
Yeah.
And audit usually goes hand in hand with inspection. So when it comes to labor inspection, what happens in a process like that? If I'm an employer and I might have violated knowingly or unknowingly, and an audit or an inspection is being probed, what are my options? So we all know that the Labor Department exists in South Africa. They are established to ensure our employers compliant with the Labour Relations Act, the Basic Conditions of Employment Act, and the Employment Equity Act. So the Labor Department sends out labor agents, labor inspectors. They go to this EMTN and they say, I want to speak to 3 of your staff. I want to see all the contracts of employment. I want to see last 3 months pay slips. I want to speak to the staff in terms of finding out how is the employment relationship. Is there anything the employer is doing wrong in terms of the BCA or the LRA? So in terms of that, labor inspections is going to be more frequent now. A labor agent does not need to give you a date and a time that they are coming to your premises. A lot of my clients have sent me an email or informed me, look, there is a labor agent coming to my premises on this date, but they don't have to inform you. They've got full right of access to your premises. You have the right to check them and ask them to prove through their ID if they are a real labor agent. And what happens is if you are not compliant, they've got a checklist that they obviously work off. If they see that something is not compliant, they will inform the employer of it. The employer usually has about 14 days to rectify any non-compliance, or if not, and the labor inspector finds that out, it gets sent to a case manager at the CCMA, and there's an automatic arbitration date set up for the employer to attend. And then you have to go and explain why you aren't compliant in some instance. Let's take a very basic one. I said earlier, UIF. Employers forget that we have to deduct 1% and contribute 1% to that employee. And if that's not being done, the labor inspector refers a matter to the CCMA and it automatically goes to arbitration. There's no conciliation beforehand to try and resolve the dispute. And that arbitration usually is made in an award, and you have to comply with that award. Otherwise, you will also get a knock on the door from the sheriff, and they will just start taking things out of your business. Yeah. So just on that quickly, you mentioned conciliation and arbitration. That's the CCMA process. I think a lot of us don't fully understand what the CCMA process entails. So in 30 seconds, can you basically just unpack on that process?
Yeah. I said earlier, employees in South Africa know they are afforded a lot of protection in terms of the Labour Acts. Okay. They raise a dispute at the CCMA. The commissioner at the CCMA has got one of 2 options. Conciliation, try and resolve the dispute between the parties. Who was wrong, who was right. The commissioner really is acting as a mediator between the 2 parties. That's conciliation. Most cases is referred to conciliation first, okay? And then arbitration is literally, it's a hearing, okay? It's a fair, but it's a actual hearing, one party versus another party in a dispute with an objective person there deciding who was correct and who was wrong. That's arbitration. The person who is wrong is getting an award against them. And Labornet assists their clients. We've got our own litigation department. We've got admitted attorneys that specializes in labor law, labor legislation. Admitted attorneys usually has got a broad spectrum of legislation, but their key focus at Labornet is labor law, the Basic Conditions of Employment Act, LRA, like I said earlier. And our litigators go on behalf of the client and we prepare days, weeks in advance to ensure that our employer wins the case. With that involved, before going to the CCMA, Labornet assists by ensuring that you are compliant. We advise of possible risk. And then it's up to the employer to make the decision. Am I going to take the risk? Am I going to comply with what the law says? Because, the law is black and white, but I personally believe it's sort of gray. A lot of areas can be interpreted both ways, not just to the employee. So the employer, the act is not just written for the employee. There's a lot of provision in there that fix.
Yeah. Cool. What are some of the common mistakes that businesses tend to overlook that come back and bite them later down the line, especially the smaller to medium-sized businesses?
From experience, contracts of employment, having no written agreement in place between an employee and an employer. first dispute at the CCMA, what are my working hours? What is my job description? What do you require of me to do in this employment relationship? Everybody knows that the employment relationship consists of I provide my services and my time, and the employer then remunerates me for that. Common mistakes employers make is not adhering to the basic conditions of Employment Act, not adhering to the main collective agreements in their specific industries. A lot of employers run businesses. They run a little a restaurant, bakery, a little shop, and they don't know they have to be part of the Restaurant Industry Bargaining Council that regulates that specific industry terms and conditions, if you want to call it that. So common mistakes is not having the relationship in agreement. So the employee doesn't know, am I on a fixed term contract? Am I permanently employed? What is my working hours? And then, like I said, not adhering to minimum requirements by the law or that sectorial determination. Yeah.
When business owners come to your office, they might be going through a bit of a difficult time. One of the employees might be wanting to take them to the CCMA. How often do you hear, I did not know we were supposed to be compliant with it. I did not know we were supposed to have done this. Are there adequate information available?
Yeah, 100%. You know, I've been with Labornet 5 years and I still go do research on cases. There's a lot of case law in South Africa that gives us background. So we work from the Act, but obviously disputes gets interpreted specifically, each dispute on their own. So there's a lot of case law that goes from the CCMA to the Labour Court, to the Labour Appeal Court, to the Constitutional Court. And the latest one that you've probably heard about that is at the Constitutional Court is the provision of parental leave. You know, where it was usually 4 months for the mother, maternity leave, unpaid maternity leave, and the other parent to that birth only got 10 consecutive days. The new provision made after this Constitutional Court by that Van Wyk attorneys disputed is that it's now a shared pool of parental leave to the two parties to the birthing. So it's
forward. Van Wyk opposed that. I mean, I think we as men, we also want some paternal time.
Yeah, look, I think you have to remember. So the case goes about the lady that wanted she had her own businesses and she wanted to return back to work sooner. But the other parent, the male, did only have 10 days. He was actually employed by another employer. And that's how that case, the dispute came about. It's unconstitutional, the current maternity 4 months and parental leave 10 consecutive days. Back in 2016, the other party, the other parent, was afforded only 3 days. So in 2016, it was ruled that you are receiving 10 days now. And now last year, 2025, September 2025, it was ruled that now the new provision and the government's got time to gazette, write it back into the Basic Conditions of Employment Act, which entitles employees to 4 months plus 10 days. So it's a pool shared between the two parties. So both parties to that birth now needs to apply to say, look, the mother can get 4 months, I'll take the 10 days, or split the leave evenly if there's a dispute. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
No. Is it fair to say that, because I'm looking around the room and I'm seeing some female entrepreneurs, and a lot of the time as business owners, we tend to always look after staff, make sure that their UIF is compliant, but a lot of the time we neglect our own as directors of the organization.
Yeah.
If you're a female-owned organization and you need to go on maternity leave for a few months, could they then claim from the unemployment office if they...
Well, if you own a business, you're not employed, eh? So you don't deduct UIF for yourself. You don't have a contract of employment. So you technically won't go to the UIF department because you haven't deducted UIF for yourself. Owners, they own the business. So they're not technically employed. They employ themselves in entrepreneurs, you understand? It's specifically when the employment relationship begins or exists that we have to deduct UIF.
Okay. So we know that legislation, law changes from time to time. What would you say are some of the most significant changes that you've seen over the last decade?
Yeah. Currently, like I said, the latest one is the parental leave allocation to employees. Also, we not a lot changes from the BCA. The most important one is currently that parental leave change that we don't really have case law on it. we don't really know what's going to happen. We don't really have seen disputes about it. We only have this one case, the Van Wyk case. So yeah, the biggest change over the last 10 years, I have to say, is that parental leave.
And building on that question, how do you see or anticipate changes for the next decade going forward? Well, what big legislative changes in the basic conditions of employment or employment equity or labor relations?
Sure, listen, I don't know. Changes to our acts come from disputes. You have to understand that there must be a dispute or an objection to a specific law that is implemented. And then it goes to the labor court, constitutional court, and then the smart guys there with a lot of experience and the education behind it, they will have to make a decision on it. But Lester, to be honest, I can't preempt what I think will change in the next thing.
There's also things in the political landscape that might trickle down.
100%.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I think the last question or request from me before we start opening it up to the businesses around us is, what would you say are the three main things that businesses need to remember when it comes to the labor relations?
Consistency with your staff. Be consistent with all your staff. Ensure that everything gets documented. A lot of disputes don't get resolved because things aren't in writing. Ensuring that staff are aware where they stand in terms of the employment relationship. I want to go back to documenting your relationship with the employee. That comes from warnings to grievance resolving, and that's the important stuff to consider. Ensuring that you're compliant, review your contracts consistently, review your labor practices, your policies, from annual leave or leave policies straight through to harassment and discrimination policies. And that's what Labornet offers you. We give you everything you need in terms of being compliant with Labornet so that you can focus on the efficiency of your business.
Okay. Erick, thank you so much.